Being a mother is hard. Being a royal daughter-in-law is even harder. But Catherine never imagined she'd one day have to carry the legacy of Princess Anne, the iron-willed woman revered across Britain. After months battling illness, Catherine now faces her greatest challenge, stepping into Anne's shoes to manage hundreds of charities and thousands of responsibilities all. While the media doubts her, the palace questions her, and the weight of it all rests on her shoulders. Yet amid the scrutiny, Catherine chooses to forge ahead. And from that moment, the monarchy doesn't just gain an heir, it begins a new chapter. Buckingham Palace tonight is a sea of light. Chandeliers hang high, each crystal prism like a fallen star scattering shimmering beams across the opulent hall. Soft laughter, the clink of wine glasses, and whispered diplomacy blend into a symphony of power and prestige. In June 2025, the state banquet is more than a gathering, it's a stage, and every eye seeks the figure of Princess Anne. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stands quietly by a marble pillar, her deep green silk gown clinging to her like a reminder of the role she's borne for 15 years. Her hands tremble faintly, though her smile remains flawless, honed by countless camera lenses. She watches Anne, the woman with silver hair gleaming like moonlight, moving through the crowd with the bearing of a warrior rather than a princess. At 74, Anne remains the embodiment of resilience, the one who rode through Olympic arenas, faced a kidnapper with unflinching steel, and just a year ago rose from a hospital bed after a horse riding accident with a curt, "No big deal." Catherine grips her champagne flute, tiny bubbles bursting on the surface like fragile dreams. She recalls the first time Anne spoke to her, not in a palace, but at a charity event, when Catherine was still fumbling with the invisible crown on her head. "Don't let them see you waver," Anne had said, her voice low like a command. Tonight, as Anne's gaze sweeps over her, Catherine senses a new weight, as if Anne is entrusting her with a secret she's not ready to bear. A silver bell rings sharp and authoritative, signaling the speeches. The hall falls silent, all eyes turning to the wooden podium carved with the royal crest. Anne steps forward, her low-heeled shoes tapping evenly on the stone floor, each step like a drumbeat of fate. She raises her glass, the chandelier's light glinting off the crystal, making her the center of the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," Anne's voice rings out, clear and uncompromising. 50 years is long enough for one person to serve. Tonight I choose to step back." A ripple of murmurs spreads through the crowd like wind over a field. Catherine feels her heart tighten, her glass tilting slightly in her hand. Anne continues, her eyes locking onto her. "And I pass the torch, not of title, but of spirit, to Catherine, who will lead the future." The room erupts. Camera flashes blaze, a storm of light engulfing the hall. Catherine stands frozen, her breath caught in her chest as Anne's gaze, steadfast, almost challenging, holds her fast. The world tilts, and she knows she's not ready. A week before the state banquet, rain patters against the window of the study at Gatcombe Park, droplets sliding down the glass like faded memories. Princess Anne sits behind an old oak desk, a cold cup of tea at her right hand, her eyes scanning a stack of letters and a packed schedule. Her hands pause. A sharp pain flickers across her chest, not intense, but enough to make her frown. Getting old, she mutters, her voice low, with a hint of self-mockery. For the first time in years, Anne feels the weight of time not on her title, but on her body. She leans back in her chair, her dark brown eyes tracing the ceiling, where tiny cracks map the roads of her life. The doctor warned her after last year's horse riding accident. "Your Highness, you need rest." Anne had brushed it off, as she did all unwanted advice. But now in the quiet room, she can't deceive herself. Her body is demanding what her mind has always refused to pause. Her breathing slows and memories flood in, like an old book opening to yellowed pages. Anne sees herself, a 10-year-old girl, standing in the long corridor of Balmoral Palace, her gray wool dress itching unbearably. Her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, sat at the head of a meeting table, her voice gentle yet incisive, steering an empire. Anne often lingered outside the door, listening not out of curiosity, but because she wanted to understand how could her mother be both a queen and a mother. "You must learn to stand tall," Anne the Queen once said, catching her hiding behind a curtain. "Not for others to see, but so you don't fall." Those words etched themselves into Anne, guiding her life. But standing tall didn't mean basking in the spotlight. Anne never craved the stage like others in her family. She recalls her wedding to Mark Phillips in 1973, a modest ceremony compared to media expectations. Mark, with his warm smile and calloused writer's hands, was once her world. But love, she soon learned, wasn't enough to keep a man by her side. When the marriage crumbled, Anne didn't weep in public. She held her children, Zara and Peter, and moved forward alone through the days of single motherhood. "I don't need anyone's pity," she told Zara when the girl asked why she never spoke of her father. Another memory surges sharp and chilling. In 1974, her car was ambushed on a London street. A man, eyes bloodshot, pointed a gun at her, shouting, "Get out!" Princess Anne stared him down, heart pounding, but voice ice cold. Not bloody likely. He fired, but the bullet missed. When police subdued the would-be kidnapper, Anne merely adjusted her hair and told her guard, "Done yet? I've got a party to get to." The press dubbed her the Steel Princess, but Anne only smirked. To her, it wasn't bravery, it was instinct. She sips the cold tea, its bitterness spreading across her tongue. Those years forged the Anne of today, simple, tough, reserved, but devoted. The British public calls her the working princess, a title she values more than any crown. Over 300 charities, thousands of engagements, endless days on horseback or in hospitals and schools. Anne didn't do it for fame. She did it because it was right. The monarchy isn't about being loved, she once told a friend, it's about serving. But now in the quiet room, Anne knows her time to serve is waning. The chest pain stabs again, a reminder. She thinks of Catherine, the woman with a warm smile but eyes that always carry a hint of self-doubt. Catherine isn't like her. She's softer, more approachable. But Anne sees in her a quiet fire strong enough to carry on her path. The upcoming banquet, she decides, will be the moment to say her final word. Anne sets the letter down, rises and steps onto the balcony. The rain has stopped, but the air is still damp, carrying the scent of fresh grass from Gatcombe's fields. She breathes deeply, feeling life flood her chest. One last thing she whispers, her gaze fixed on the horizon where light fades. But in her heart, a question lingers. Is Catherine ready to carry the torch she's about to pass? Catherine's phone buzzes incessantly, each ping like a hammer striking her mind. The night of the Buckingham Palace banquet has passed, but the glare of camera flashes still clings to her, blinding and relentless. Headlines explode online. Princess Anne retires. Catherine named spiritual successor. A new dawn for the monarchy, and harsher ones can. Kate replaced the legendary. Anne Catherine sits in the small drawing room at Kensington Palace. The dim glow of a table lamp illuminating her face, revealing lines of exhaustion. She still can't process Anne's declaration, like a boulder crashing into the calm lake of her life. She clutches her phone, scrolling through comments on X. One user writes, "Catherine's the new icon, but can she match Anne?" Another sneers, "From illness to running the monarchy. Good luck." Catherine shuts the screen off, a suffocating feeling rising. She's used to media scrutiny, but this is different. Anne hasn't just handed her a role, she's entrusted her with a legacy. The next morning, Catherine drives alone to Gatcombe Park, Anne's estate in Gloucestershire. The winding lane to the manor twists through lush green fields, empty of people alive, with the chirping of chaffinches and the scent of freshly cut grass. Gatcombe Park appears before her, rustic and unpretentious, a stark contrast to Buckingham's grandeur. Gray stone walls draped in moss, a small garden with wildflowers swaying in the breeze, and the faint whinny of horses from distant stables all form a tranquil world where Anne chose to be her true self. Anne waits on the porch, dressed in a dark green sweater and simple trousers, her silver hair tied neatly back. "You're early," she says, her voice low but not cold. "Come in, tea's ready." Catherine steps into the cozy drawing room, where a fire crackles in the hearth, casting a comforting warmth. A worn, upholstered armchair, a bookshelf stuffed with tomes on horses and history, and a few family photos on the table. There's no trace of royal pomp. She sits, hands clasped tightly in her lap, feeling like a student facing an exam she hasn't studied for. Anne pours tea, her movements slow but deliberate. "The media's driving you up the wall, isn't it?" she asks, eyes on the teapot. "They're always like that. Praising you today, tearing you apart tomorrow." Catherine offers a faint smile, masking her tension. "I'm used to it, ma'am. But your announcement, I didn't see it coming. I'm not sure I can." "Don't say can." Anne cuts in, looking up for the first time, her gaze sharp as a blade. The monarchy has no room for doubt, Catherine. You do or you don't. I chose you because I know you will. Catherine takes a deep breath, the air in the room feeling thick. But why me? You've done everything: over 300 charities, thousands of trips, a lifetime of service. I'm just starting, and after last year, her voice falters, trailing off at the memory of her cancer treatment, the days she hid from public view. Anne sets her teacup down, the porcelain clinking softly against the table. Catherine, I'm not retiring because I want to. My body's not listening anymore. Last year's fall was the final warning, but I'm not giving you a burden, I'm giving you a chance to shape the monarchy in your own way. She rises and steps to the window, morning light illuminating her lined but resolute face. Do you know why I never needed the spotlight? Because glory is a trap. It makes you forget who you are. Duty, pressure, loneliness, that's what awaits you. I've lived with them my whole life. Some nights I stood here alone wondering if I'd done enough. You'll have those nights, but you have to keep going. Catherine listens, each word from Anne carving into her mind. She thinks of her early days as a royal, when every step was scrutinized, dubbed Perfect Kate, yet always expected to stumble. She thinks of the cancer treatment, clutching her children and praying she'd live to see them grow. And now Anne is asking her to bear a responsibility greater than herself. I'm afraid I'm not strong enough, Catherine admits, her voice soft but honest. I'm afraid I'll let you down, let the country down. Anne turns, her eyes softening but still firm. You don't need to be me, Catherine. You just need to be you. The public loves you not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Use that. And when you want to give up, remember you're not doing this for yourself, but for those who believe in you. Anne's words touch something deep within Catherine, like a small flame igniting in a cold wind. She feels the strength in Anne's sincerity, and for the first time she sees herself not just as a princess, but as a woman who can change things. I'll try, she says, her voice steadier. I promise. Anne nods, a rare smile flickering across her lips. She extends her hand and Catherine takes it, Anne's rough but warm grip, like a silent affirmation. In that moment, in the simple room at Gatcombe Park, an invisible torch passes from one generation to the next. Light from the window bathes the two women as if the world itself witnesses the unspoken handoff. As Catherine leaves, her steps are lighter, but in her heart she knows the road ahead will never be easy. Kensington Palace on a late June morning in 2025 holds a deceptive calm, like the sea before a storm. Pale sunlight filters through tall windows, illuminating Persian rugs and antique bookshelves, but it can't dispel the heavy atmosphere in the private meeting room. Catherine, Princess of Wales, sits at the head of the table, her hands resting on a thick stack of documents, the list of over 300 charities once overseen by Princess Anne now passed to her. Each page is a reminder of Anne's towering legacy, and the pressure weighs on Catherine like a leaden cloak. The meeting room crackles with tension. Senior royal advisors sit around the table, their gazes on Catherine, not quite skeptical, but far from trusting. Harold, a seasoned courtier with silver hair and a voice like a church bell, speaks first. Your Royal Highness, we all admire your resolve, but taking on Princess Anne's entire portfolio of charities is a formidable challenge. Perhaps we should distribute the responsibilities, at least initially. Catherine smiles, a polite mask hiding her emotions. I appreciate your concern, Harold, but Princess Anne entrusted this to me. I don't want to let her down. Her voice is gentle, but inside a wave of doubt surges. Am I truly ready? Eleanor, another advisor with hawk-like eyes, interjects, her tone icy. Ma'am, no one questions your dedication, but the public is talking. They're concerned about your health. After last year, taking on such a workload might raise questions. She pauses, letting the words hang sharp as a blade. Catherine feels her cheeks flush, but she keeps her expression calm. My health is not an issue, she says, her voice firmer than she feels. I'm back, and I'll do what's needed. But as she speaks, memories of her cancer treatment flood back, sleepless nights, moments clutching her children to hide her fear, and William's worried glances when he thought she wasn't looking. The public doesn't know those struggles yet. They judge as if she's a porcelain figure ready to shatter. The meeting ends with reluctant nods, but Catherine knows the whispers won't stop. As she steps into the hallway, A young aide Sophie hands her a freshly printed newspaper. The front page shows Catherine at the banquet flashbulbs, making her face pale with the headline, "Can Catherine Escape Anne's Shadow?" She folds the paper, gripping it as if to crush the doubts. That night in her bedroom at Kensington Palace, Catherine sits alone in an armchair, the glow of a bedside lamp casting her shadow on the wall. William is away on an overseas tour, leaving her with swirling thoughts. She opens her tablet, scrolling through Anne's charities: children's hospitals, equine conservation funds, education programs, veteran support. Each name is a promise, a duty, and a question. Can I do this? She thinks of Anne, of their hand clasp at Gatcombe Park, of her words. "You don't need to be me, Catherine. You just need to be you." But is being herself enough when the world expects her to fail? She recalls her early royal days when every dress and word was dissected, labeled "Perfect Kate," yet always poised for a misstep. She survived that, but this is bigger, heavier. The palace whispers, conservatives like Eleanor, courtiers who doubt a frail princess can cope, haunt her like shadows. Catherine rises, stepping to the window, gazing into London's darkness. The city glitters, but the streetlights are cold, unlike the warm hearth at Gatcombe. She presses a hand to her chest, feeling her steady heartbeat, and tells herself, "I beat the illness. I can beat these doubts." But deep within, a small voice persists, questioning, "Am I truly ready, or am I just trying not to fall?" The afternoon at Kensington Palace is gentle, like a soft piano melody, with pale golden sunlight filtering through oak trees, scattering shimmering patches on the lawn behind the garden. Catherine sits on a picnic blanket, her simple cotton dress fanning out around her, surrounded by her 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, laughing and playing with an old corgi named Willow. Louis's clear giggles ring out as he chases a rolling ball, while Charlotte, with the seriousness of an eldest sister, teaches George how to fold a paper airplane. These are rare moments when Catherine feels not like the Princess of Wales, but simply a mother fully present in her children's small world. Yet even in this peace, duty creeps in an uninvited guest. Just days ago, Catherine left a tense palace meeting where skeptical glances and whispers about her health lingered. The list of over 300 charities from Princess Anne now on her desk is a constant reminder of the responsibility Anne entrusted to her. Each night she wonders if she's strong enough, but today, amid her children's laughter, she wants to set those worries aside. "George, look at this," Charlotte shouts, launching her paper airplane over Willow's head. George, 12, with tousled brown hair and thoughtful eyes like his father's, laughs, but his gaze soon shifts to his mother. Catherine notices the change George is growing, beginning to sense the larger world beyond childhood games. "I want to fly real planes," Mom George says, sitting beside Catherine, his hands fidgeting with grass. "Like a pilot crossing oceans." Catherine smiles, brushing his hair. "You'd be a wonderful pilot, George. But you know, sometimes flying isn't about escaping, it's about carrying important things to where they're needed." She pauses, thinking of Anne, of her words at Gatcombe Park. "You're not doing this for yourself, but for those who believe in you." Catherine realizes she must now pass on that lesson. Charlotte and Louis run over, clutching a handful of wildflowers they've picked. "For you, Mom." Louis shoves a daisy into Catherine's hand, his face beaming. She hugs him, feeling his small warmth, and for a moment memories of her cancer treatment resurface, times she held her children to hide her fear, promising herself she'd live for them. Now she's not just living, but leading, not only for herself, but for her children's generation. "You know," Catherine begins, her voice soft but clear, "I've been given a very important job. It's like when you help your friends at school, but much bigger. I'll be looking after lots of people who need help, just like Granny Anne did." Charlotte furrows her brow, her bright eyes curious. "Like Granny Anne, riding horses and going everywhere." "But aren't you tired, Mom? You were sick." Charlotte's innocent words sting like a small knife, but Catherine smiles, hiding the pang. "I get tired, but I have you all," she replies, pulling Charlotte close. "And I learned from Granny Anne that when we do what's right, even if it's tiring, it's worth it. You need to learn that too, gratitude and responsibility. We don't just live for ourselves, but for those around us." George stays quiet, his gaze distant beyond the lawn to Kensington Palace's ancient walls. Catherine sees in that moment he's not just a boy, but a future king, slowly feeling the weight of an unseen crown. Mom George says suddenly, his voice deeper, I see you working a lot. Like Granny Ann. When I grow up, I'll have to do that too. Right? George's question stops Catherine short. She looks into his eyes, seeing a seriousness beyond his 12 years. Yes, George. She says, her voice gentle but firm. But you won't do it alone. Mom, Dad, and even Charlotte and Louie will be with you. Duty is big, but it's also how we leave something good in the world. George nods, saying nothing more, but Catherine sees a spark in his eyes, a tiny resolve like the one she felt when she clasped Anne's hand at Gatcombe. She hugs all three children, their breasts mingling, and in that moment she understands her new role isn't just about carrying Anne's legacy, but building one for her children for a future monarchy. As the sun sets gilding the garden, Catherine leads the children inside. Louis yawns, Charlotte chatters about a new game, but George walks slower, his eyes still on the horizon. Catherine rests a hand on his shoulder, silently vowing, "I'll do well, George, so you can be proud." The Royal Highland Show in July 2025 is a vibrant tapestry of Scotland green fields stretching under a lightly gray sky, the wail of bagpipes echoing through damp air, and the scent of hay mingling with fresh-baked scones from market stalls. Crowds gather at Ingliston near Edinburgh in colorful tartan from farmers to nobles, all brimming with national pride. But today, eyes aren't just on shaggy Highland cattle or equestrian displays. They're on Catherine, Princess of Wales, taking center stage at an event long synonymous with Princess Anne's decades of presence. Catherine stands at the edge of the exhibition area, her moss-green coat and tartan scarf blending with the festive air, yet the crowd's gazes find her like spotlights in the dark. She feels the weight of those looks, expectation, curiosity, and lingering doubts from whispers following Anne's announcement. In her pocket, she clutches a scrap of paper, with a speech she's revised a dozen times. "Be yourself," Anne said at Gatcombe Park. But here in the heart of Scotland, Catherine feels like a new actor stepping onto a stage script half-learned. A host, his warm voice thick with an Edinburgh burr, introduces her to the podium. The Princess of Wales carrying forward Princess Anne's legacy. "Welcome to the Royal Highland Show." The crowd claps, cheers resounding, but Catherine catches a few wary glances as if they're waiting for her to prove her worth. She steps to the podium, breathing deeply, the scent of grass and damp earth filling her chest. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to stand here today on Scotland's storied land." She begins, her voice clear yet warm. "Princess Anne made this festival a symbol of unity, and I'm not here to replace her, but to carry forward the torch she lit." The crowd quiets, listening. Catherine pauses, her eyes sweeping over the faces farmers with calloused hands, children clutching parents, and elderly folk with kind smiles. "I'm announcing a new initiative focused on community health to support rural Scottish families, the heart of this nation." A wave of applause erupts stronger than before. Catherine feels warmth spread through her, as if she's breached an invisible wall. She steps down, no longer a princess under a spotlight, but a woman connecting with real people. An elderly woman in a tartan dress grasps her hand, whispering, "You did well, lass. Anne would be proud." Catherine smiles, a weight lifting from her chest. The day's most poignant moment comes in the afternoon at the equestrian display. Catherine, in simple riding gear, emerges with a group of disabled children from a charity Anne once championed. She rides a calm black horse leading the group, while the children, some in wheelchairs, others guided by volunteers, beam beside horses adorned with ribbons. The crowd falls silent. Then applause rises, not loud but deep, a wordless acknowledgement. Catherine looks at the children, their eyes sparkling with joy, and thinks of Anne, the woman who rode through Olympics, who spent her life bringing smiles to people like these. In that moment, she feels the torch Anne passed is not just duty, but a light, a reason to keep going. She leans down, helping a tiny girl stroke the horse, and when the girl laughs, Catherine knows she's found her own path. As the sun sets gilding Ingliston's fields, Catherine stands alone on a small hill, watching the crowd disperse. A post on X spreads quickly with a photo of her riding beside the children. Catherine isn't just following Anne, she's writing her own story. She smiles not for the praise, but because for the first time she believes she can.